Okay, so you've brought us a really compelling stack of material this time. It all seems to circle around Jesus, but specifically these ideas of like leadership, service, sacrifice.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is how these sources tackle it. You've got history, theology, but also really practical stuff, applications for today. It's quite a mix.
Yeah, it feels like we're looking at it from all angles. So I guess our mission for this deep dive is to really pull out the core insights. How does Jesus's life and his teachings offer a model, maybe a timeless one, for leadership, for personal change in, well, the complex world we're in now?
Precisely. Why does this figure, after 2 millennia, still speak so powerfully to our modern challenges? That's the question, really.
And, something jumped out at me right away reading through this. It makes you wonder, have you ever thought that maybe the secret to, I don't know, making a real lasting impact, professionally, personally, whatever, maybe it lies in this ancient idea, this concept of divine love meeting, like radical sacrifice, the kind we see in Jesus?
That's a great way to frame it. It really gets to the heart of what these sources are exploring, doesn't it? That tension, that connection.
Okay, so let's start there. This idea of unfolding glory. One source talks about Jesus as the, quote, ultimate manifestation of God's glory on earth. It even brings in John 1.14, the Word became flesh. That's a heavy statement.
It is, and central to that is the Incarnation. This idea that the divine word, the Logos, actually took on human form. He's like bridging this immense gap between the infinite, the cosmic, and the deeply personal, the intimate.
It makes me think of, like an artist, the source uses that analogy, right? Taking a plain canvas and making it into something alive, something tangible, the divine becoming touchable.
That's a helpful image. Theologically, it's about God's self-expression becoming concrete. Maybe people thought of God as this distant power, but the Incarnation suggests God steps in, becomes one of us, experiences human life, the joy, the sorrow, the love, the pain, everything.
Which is a pretty radical shift, thinking about the divine that way, not just out there, but right here, feeling what we feel.
It's huge. And the source points out how this brings together different strands of thought. You've got the Hebrew idea of God's immanence, God with us, and then the Greek philosophical idea of the Logos, the underlying reason, the creative force. They kind of merge in this concept.
Okay, so practically speaking, what does this mean for us? This idea of Jesus as the ultimate revelation.
Well, the suggestion is that the same sort of divine light, that essence that's shown in Jesus, is somehow accessible to us. Not that we become divine, but that we can draw inspiration from that example, to be more compassionate, maybe more innovative, more resilient when things get tough.
The source lays out 3 actionable reflections for living this out. First one, cultivate awareness. Prayer, meditation, that kind of thing.
Right, it's about paying attention, developing a sensitivity to maybe something more going on beneath the surface of everyday life, looking deeper, as the source puts it.
Then embody grace and truth, how we deal with people.
Yeah, reflecting that character we see in Jesus. Grace, that sort of unearned kindness and truth, honesty, integrity, those are powerful together in any relationship, aren't they?
Definitely. And the third is seeking holistic transformation, work, relationships, personal growth, everything.
It's saying this isn't just a Sunday thing or a private thing. It should ideally permeate all aspects of life, leading towards a more integrated, purposeful existence.
Okay, let's really dig into the Incarnation itself. When the divine took on human form, this feels like the absolute foundation.
It really is.
Yeah.
John 1.14, again, God stepping into the human story, becoming part of our condition. That bridge we mentioned between the transcendent and the everyday, the mundane.
It's almost hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? The divine willingly taking on human limits.
It is, and the source unpacks that mystery. When it says became flesh, the Greek word is sarx. It means fully embracing it all. Not just the body, but the limitations, the joys, the pains, even mortality. A complete immersion.
And that phrase, dwelling among us, it echoes the Old Testament tabernacle, right? God's presence in a place. But this feels different.
Completely. The Incarnation isn't about a temporary dwelling place. It's God intending to be permanently close, to reside ultimately within human hearts, a promise of constant presence.
The theology here is so deep. The Logos, that creative principle.
Yes, the source reminds us the Logos isn't just some abstract idea. It's God himself, becoming tangible, reachable in Jesus. The underlying wisdom of everything, taking human form.
Which brings us to the hypostatic union. 2 complete natures, divine and human, in one person. That's a mind-bender.
It's a profound mystery, absolutely. But the implications are huge. Because Jesus lived a fully human life, he can genuinely empathize with us. That shared experience is key to the whole idea of redemption.
And it changes how we can relate to God, surely, not some distant being anymore.
Exactly. God walking with us, offering grace, inviting connection. It shifts the whole dynamic.
And the source connects this historical event, the Incarnation, to this ongoing reality of indwelling. It's not just past tense. It mentions John 14 and 15, God dwelling with us, abiding in Christ.
That's vital. The Incarnation kicked off an ongoing process. Divine presence within believers, transforming from the inside. It's that mutual thing, I in you, you in me, a source of strength.
So let's bring this down to earth. What's the real world relevance for me, for the listener?
Well, several things. First, empathy and compassion. Knowing God became human means our struggles aren't foreign to him. It helps us connect better with others, too, recognizing our shared humanity.
And that idea of holistic transformation, integrating the material and spiritual.
Yeah. In a world often focused only on the material, the Incarnation reminds us of the spiritual value in everything, including our work. So maybe valuing integrity, creativity, compassion, just as much as profit.
And community, believers as living temples.
It redefines community, doesn't it?
Right.
We're called to build communities, work, neighborhood, church, based on support, purpose, truth, grace, reflecting that divine presence in each other.
Okay, moving on. There's a section on Jesus' prayer in John 12, Father, glorify your name, right before the cross. The source calls it a kind of mission statement. That's an interesting angle.
It really is. At that moment, facing, well, unimaginable suffering, his focus isn't escape, but God's purpose, God's name being honored. It reframes suffering itself, maybe as a path to glory.
So it's a prayer of deep commitment, even in agony.
Totally. A commitment to God's will, even when it involves intense personal cost. It pushes back against our usual ideas of success, where we often think success means avoiding hardship.
And suffering as the pathway to glory that turns things upside down.
It does. The source suggests pain isn't just an endpoint. It can be transformative, like a seed needing to break open to grow. Our trials can actually lead to growth, to deeper understanding.
What's the theological grounding for this?
Well, first, it shows divine purpose even within agony. Jesus accepting the cross wasn't just passive, it was deliberate, part of God's redemptive plan. Second, it flips worldly values. Honor found in humility, victory in vulnerability.
And this provides a model for transformational leadership.
Exactly. That prayer becomes a call to a higher purpose, one bigger than ourselves, marked by sacrifice, empathy, commitment.
How do we actually apply this in our lives, our work?
The source suggests things like leading through service, prioritizing integrity, creating ethical environments, developing resilience, seeing setbacks not as failures, but as chances to learn, like that seed breaking open.
And cultivating community, supporting each other through trials.
Yes, creating spaces where people feel valued, understood, where together we can turn hardship into hope, into renewal.
It really presents the cross not just as history, but as this ongoing vision, a kind of roadmap for transforming our own lives through vulnerability, through humility.
Absolutely. It's a profound shift seeing that real meaning, maybe even glory, can come from what looks like defeat.
Which flows right into the cross and resurrection themselves, the pinnacle of divine revelation, as one source puts it, this incredible paradox.
It's the central paradox, isn't it? An instrument of shame and death becomes the ultimate display of divine love and glory. The cross gets completely redefined.
How does the cross become this stage for glory?
A few ways. First, it was a willing sacrifice. Jesus chose it. Second, it's seen as the defeat of sin, confronting the power that separates us from God. Third, it made the invisible God's love visible, tangible.
And then the resurrection, the triumph over death.
Absolutely crucial. The resurrection changes everything. It's victory over death, breaking its hold. It's restoration, hope, a vision of renewal for everything. And it's a model for transformation, new life emerging from death.
So what are the implications for us today?
For leadership, it points to service, selflessness, especially in tough calls. For personal growth, it shows suffering can be a catalyst for empathy, for becoming more. For communities, it builds hope, mutual support, healing.
It sounds like it comes down to embracing that paradox, reimagining suffering not just as pain, but as a process that can lead to something greater, to God's glory.
Exactly. It challenges our usual ideas of power and success, urging us to find meaning in light of that ultimate sacrifice.
Let's go even deeper into the cross itself, a stage for divine glory, transforming punishment into purpose.
Yes, the source really emphasizes this isn't just tragedy, but a new beginning. It exposed sin's destruction, but also lit the way to reconciliation.
You mentioned a willing sacrifice. How does that play out here?
It highlights Jesus' choice, driven by love, to embrace suffering, choosing humility over earthly power, redefining strength through vulnerability, through self-giving love.
And a practical application for, say, professional life.
It challenges leaders to prioritize service, empathy, long-term integrity over maybe just short-term gain or self-interest, building more ethical workplaces.
Then the defeat of sin, the cross as a battlefield.
Yes, Jesus' death wasn't passive. It was divine intervention against the power of sin, not just individual mistakes, but that deeper separation.
And a takeaway for us.
Personally, maybe seeing our flaws not as defining us, but as chances for change. And systemically, like at work, acknowledging and addressing injustices.
And finally, the cross as a visible manifestation of the invisible.
Yeah, God's glory may be abstract before it becomes tangible. We witness the depth of God's love and mercy, a God who participates, even in darkness.
How might that shape our daily view?
It encourages looking beyond surfaces, seeing that healing, growth, beauty can emerge from really dark places, whether in relationships, overcoming challenges, even art.
Okay, shifting to the resurrection. Triumph over death, a new dawn beyond the grave. That image of light shattering darkness.
Precisely. Resurrection means death isn't the end. It's a doorway to renewed eternal life, a radical redefinition of life itself.
So this victory over death, what does it mean for us?
It means mortality's chains are broken. It shows even the deepest darkness can be overcome by divine power. It confirms Jesus' mission and God's ultimate redemptive plan.
And restoration and hope.
Resurrection heals creation's brokenness, promises total renewal. Like a barren field blooming, it offers hope that our own losses, failures, brokenness can be made whole. It's constant hope, no matter what.
And it's a model for transformation.
Absolutely. A blueprint for personal and communal renewal. Look beyond past struggles. Embrace new beginnings. A business in crisis could find potential for reinvention. Relationships can find forgiveness, rebuild stronger.
The source calls it the ultimate vindication, glorifying the mission, turning the cross into an expression of love.
Exactly. It forces us to rethink success, victory, to see challenges not just as obstacles, but potential paths to growth, to deeper connection with the divine.
This seems to lead naturally into moving from ancient revelation to modern mission. Jesus' example as a timeless blueprint for service.
Yes, his ministry, rooted in ancient prophecies, provides this model for service that still resonates. It was a radical call to compassion and courageous action.
What were those foundations of Christ's ministry, the revelation in action?
It connects back to Old Testament visions of justice and mercy, which Jesus then embodied through kindness, through service, and his humility, serving, not being served. That still challenges modern leadership ideas, doesn't it?
It really does. So how does this ancient revelation bridge to the enduring mission today?
Well, that core message, love your neighbor, share the good news, became the heart of mission work. It evolved from the early church to global missions today. The tools change, technology helps, but the core truth, the urgency of service, remains.
What are the core aspects of living out Christ's example that are still relevant?
Things like compassionate love, actively caring for the marginalized, fearless commitment, sticking to God's will despite adversity, and service through sacrifice, willingness to give up personal comfort for others.
And the practical implications for modern mission, or even just modern life.
It impacts leadership, fostering service-oriented cultures. It changes community engagement, focusing on empowerment, not just aid. And personally, it helps reframe struggles as opportunities for growth.
Which brings us to servanthood as a model, embracing this legacy as a call to serve.
Absolutely. Jesus, the leader who chose to serve, offers this incredibly powerful model that still inspires people wanting to make a difference.
What's the biblical foundation we see in his life?
We see it in his healing and compassion, restoring health and dignity, in his teaching through actions, sacrificing his own comfort, and ultimately the cross as the supreme act of servanthood.
And the historical roots and theological implications.
The idea of a suffering servant goes way back in the prophecies. The early church then ran with this, seeing servanthood as a transformative power that shaped their whole identity.
How does this play out in modern mission?
Often it means addressing both spiritual and practical needs. It involves costly commitment, facing challenges head-on, and aiming for transformative leadership, creating collaborative, compassionate environments.
And some concrete, practical applications for living this out today.
Things like cultivating empathy, leading by example through service, committing to personal sacrifice for others' benefit, and intentionally building supportive communities.
Now let's talk about sacrificial love in action, embracing this ultimate example, moving beyond our comfort zones.
Sacrificial love, with Jesus as the ultimate model, it's a transformative vision. It challenges us to center our lives around the needs of others.
How did Jesus model this so powerfully?
His love just transcended self-interest, didn't it? And that's inspired countless people, missionaries, social workers, everyday folks, to acts of selfless service.
What does it look like moving from theory to practice?
You see it in community outreach transforming cities and efforts empowering remote villages, schools, clinics, farms, and just in those small daily acts of kindness that often go unnoticed but mean so much.
What are the broader implications of embracing this?
It inspires more ethical leadership, it strengthens community bonds, and it leads to profound personal transformation for those who practice it.
And some practical steps we can take.
Maybe start small, with conscious acts of generosity. Be willing to step out of your comfort zone sometimes. Actively cultivate empathy. Lead by example with service. And take time for reflection, for prayer, to deepen that commitment.
This connects to the idea of a living manifestation of grace, the power of presence.
Yeah, the idea that transformation often happens best not through big speeches, but through quiet, consistent relational engagement, like Jesus dwelling among people.
How is Jesus the ultimate model here?
He didn't stay distant. He chose to live among the people, showed radical inclusivity, connecting with everyone, regardless of status.
And how do modern missionaries try to build these bridges of grace?
Often by prioritizing listening and learning for the cultures they serve, by trying to embody grace in their interactions, seeing the dignity in everyone.
What are the theoretical foundations linking grace and transformation?
Grace acts like a catalyst, creating the space for change, and real transformation often happens in community through relationships.
So, practical applications for living out relational engagement.
Choosing humility, investing time in relationships, reflecting that inclusivity, reaching out to those different from us, leading with empathy, creating spaces for real dialogue.
Now, the sources include a specific case study. Elizabeth Mantell, a medical missionary in Malawi, a real-world example.
Yes, her story is a really powerful illustration of servanthood and glory lived out, a testament to divine love made practical.
How did she show a heart for service?
She aimed for holistic healing, physical, spiritual, emotional, and she prioritized real relational connection, walking alongside the people she served.
And the sacrifice and transformation aspect. Enduring hardship.
No doubt she faced challenges, but her focus stayed on empowering the local community long-term, like training local nurses and healthcare workers, investing in them.
What's her lasting legacy of impact?
The nursing school she helped establish created ripples. It built sustainable transformation by boosting local capacity, ensuring healthcare for future generations.
This feels like it's about a journey of vulnerability and selfless love that goes beyond an occupational calling.
Exactly. Imitating Jesus isn't just a job description. It's about living out his message of sacrificial love, embracing vulnerability in our everyday lives.
How does vulnerability as strength connect to imitating Jesus?
Real vulnerability takes courage, right?
Yeah.
It mirrors Christ's humility. It's not weakness. It often opens the door to deeper, more authentic connections.
What are the origins and theoretical underpinnings?
Deep biblical roots, like John 15:13, laying down one's life. And philosophically, it's countercultural to our often self-interested world.
What are the broader implications? How does this change things?
It can lead to personal transformation, moving beyond self-focus. It helps build compassionate communities, and it applies professionally. That's servant leadership, really.
Actionable steps to live this out.
Embracing vulnerability in relationships, prioritizing service, cultivating empathy, reflecting, praying, and leading by example through selfless actions.
Then there's engaging relationally to illuminate God's presence, the invitation to live out Christ's heart.
It's about choosing to dwell among those we serve, building trust through real connection, like Jesus did.
How did Jesus model this relational model?
He lived among people, didn't set himself apart, built trust through personal interactions, crossing social barriers.
What are the underlying principles here?
Intimacy over abstraction, real connection, not just ideas. And mutual vulnerability, being open, fosters deeper understanding.
And the broader implications for the world.
Building cultural bridges, empowering others through respect and connection.
Practical applications for everyday life.
Be present. Practice active listening. Learn from others. Share your own journey authentically. Invest in long-term relationships.
It all seems to point towards transform through service as a divine invitation to transform.
Yes, recognizing that acting in genuine love and service is one of the most powerful ways to change the world, mirroring Jesus' life and sacrifice.
What's the heart of Christ's message here?
That radical idea that real power is shown in service, not dominance. That even small, humble acts of love testify to a greater truth.
And the theological foundations.
Rooted in grace, in action, extending love freely. And our interconnectedness, John 13.34, loving one another.
Practical applications for transforming lives.
Engaging relationally, making choices for everyday sacrifice, empowering others through service, not creating dependency.
And the broader narrative this fits into.
It's the story of redemption and hope. Love creates ripples, inviting us and others into ongoing transformation.
Finally, becoming vessels of divine glory as a call beyond comfort.
It's seeing ourselves as instruments for something bigger, letting God's glory show through our humble acts of love and sacrifice, following Jesus' lead.
How did Jesus exemplify this? Bold prayer and sacrificial love.
That prayer, Father, glorify your name, facing suffering. His willingness to endure hardship for the mission.
The significance of the transformative power of the cross and resurrection.
It reminds us that even from death, resurrection is possible. Our sacrifices can hold seeds of renewal, of new life.
How do we live the mission of transformation?
By engaging relationally, mirroring Jesus' inclusivity, building real connections.
Key practical applications for bringing transformation.
Cultivate presence, embrace vulnerability, actively serve, learn from others, reflect and renew regularly to sustain it.
So wrapping up this incredible deep dive, it feels like this ultimate revelation of God's glory really is a mission of transformative service, a call to live out divine truth.
Exactly. Jesus' life is the ultimate revelation, inviting us into a personal mission of sacrificial love, connection, and transformation.
He's truly a divine example of sacrificial love.
Yes, his whole journey, his self-giving love, John 15.12, captures it, sets the bar.
And it comes down to building lasting connections through relational engagement.
Stepping outside our comfort zones, building trust and understanding.
Ultimately, transforming lives through service.
Participating in a mission bigger than ourselves through compassionate action.
So, final practical applications for the listener trying to imitate Jesus.
Embrace vulnerability. Engage actively in community, prioritize relational service at work, cultivate generosity, and make time for reflection and renewal.
This has been really profound. Thinking about all this, the depth of sacrificial love, relational engagement, transformative service in Jesus' life, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might even one small shift in how you approach leadership or work or just your personal relationships, how might that create a ripple effect? Maybe reveal a deeper purpose, maybe even a glimpse of something transcendent in the everyday.
That's a wonderful question to leave things on.
Yes.
It really challenges us, doesn't it, to move from just thinking about these things to actually trying to live them out.
Absolutely. We really hope you'll take some time to reflect on these ideas, see how they might apply in your own life. It feels like these themes offer such a rich starting point for ongoing exploration, could lead to some surprising and really meaningful discoveries.